Before we dive into this episode, I kind of want to explain a couple of things. This was actually filmed in late May of 2015 and had an original release date of June 4th of 2015. Then a couple of things happened. And we'll get to that as we get there. So when I'm making references to the last episode and things like that, it was because this was the last episode that was filmed in May. And then there were some changes that need to be made. And we'll get to that, though. So let's just kick over to the show and yeah. This week I want to talk about something that's going to veer us dangerously close, if not dipping into tinfoil hat territory. So I'd like to take this moment to remind you to please leave your hands and arms inside the vehicle at all times until it comes to a full and complete stop, at which point exit quickly but carefully to the exits located behind you. Enjoy your ride. I am treading very lightly on this video because if I don't, I'm going to come off as a stark raving lunatic. And I mean red string on the wall level of lunacy here. So please understand, if I'm sounding condescending or patronizing, it's because I'm trying to walk gently here and not, be that guy. Okay, so bad games, they're not anything new. I did an informal poll on Facebook and Twitter asking for opinions about bad games, and I got quite a few. And a lot of stuff I'd heard before, like Dirt 3, Final Fantasy 13, Watch Dogs, Fear 3. And then I got some I didn't expect, like Fez and Borderlands 2. I get that there's individual tastes, but when you look at it in the big picture, there's an overarching theme from the players about this. There's also a very disturbing trend that I'm seeing amongst the developers, but one thing at a time. Let's talk about the players first. When you deconstruct it, a bad game is generally one that doesn't deliver on the promises made. Now, way back in the day when we used to rent Nest games from the video store, we had this hard and fast rule. The cooler the splash screen, the lamer the game. For example, Metroid. Pretty basic average splash screen, but a great game. Danny Sullivan's Indie Heat. Great splash screen, lame game. Besides, Super Off-Road did this game much better. This is still true today. Look at it like Aliens Colonial Marines, great example. The trailers promised a lot, and then when it didn't deliver, it was rightfully panned. And we can say the same thing about almost every game being put out there now. I would argue things like Witcher 3, Call of Duty Ghosts, hell, Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed Unity are the most public ones lately. And here's where we kind of start towing the line into folium haberdashery here. If you ask the game devs, the disappointment is our fault, not theirs. Best example is right now. Have you seen that IGN short for Assassin's Creed? The one they interviewed all the people at Ubisoft about Unity?
This one we made have taken too many risks.
There were a lot of ambitious elements.
Through the magic of YouTube, I'll put an annotation on the screen right over here so you can actually watch the video for yourself. But when you're watching this video, I want you not just to listen to what they say, but listen for what they're not saying. At no time does anybody say, yeah, we made a bad game.
Nobody's happy when 4 years of hard work are just imaged, with the bug.
ACU is the first one in the AC brand where we saw that it was a much lower Metacritic.
Instead, they blame us.
It's like you're a kid being told you're ugly and you're fat. And that, it hurts. Your little heart breaks a little bit.
They call us bullies. They had this artistic vision, and we're just we don't get it, They don't even take any responsibility for making an inferior product. They basically blame the players for expecting too much out of them.
At the same time, I do feel for the fans who felt somehow that it didn't meet their expectations.
Oh gosh, I'm terribly sorry, dev team. This is the monster you created. Let's face it, large studios are now dropping millions of dollars on a title. The Motley Fool estimated that Assassin's Creed Black Flag cost about $100 million to produce. IMDb has put the estimated budget being about $150 million for Unity, and Motley Fool said that GTA 5 cost $265 million, making it the most expensive game to date. That means that every game has to be a blockbuster. They have to sell millions of units in order to even make a small profit. Failure is just not an option. And how do you think they're going to sell all these units? Well, they're going to do it like every other game does it these days. Hype. I'll stop kicking Ubisoft for just a moment and let me turn my attentions toward Daybreak. DC Universe Online is one of the worst offenders for hype. A good example of this is when they released their power called Munitions. They had constant posts on Facebook and Twitter for what felt like months. They spammed the hell out of this hashtag called Ready for Munitions. They made video after video hyping Munitions. And the player's eventual response when it dropped? Meh. No, really. You had people who loved it, and their posts and their voices were amplified to make them seem like the majority, but in the game, I didn't see many people converting to it or rolling new tunes for it. The critical response from players, the people who really matter, was apathy. It was, well, so what? When are you going to fix some of the core problems and stop adding stuff we never asked for? And I could repeat this with just about everything else Daybreak does, too. Okay, so in the last few years, every major game has done this. They hype, and then they overhype. How long was the hype cycle on Watch Dogs? 2 years? And what they showed us was not the same thing they delivered in that 2-year time span. Well, we can say the same thing about, wow, just a ton of games, really.
And again, somehow this is our fault, the gamer's fault. Again, the Ubisoft video. It's our fault for expecting too much, not their fault for delivering a glitchy, buggy, hamstrung version of what was promised to us on pre-order. Oh wait, I haven't talked about pre-order yet, have I?
Okay, here's where I'm going to start sounding like I've got red string on the wall, but hear me out. Every game now sells pre-order copies. I mean, hell, H1Z1 outright sold beta keys for a free-to-play title and did so purely on hype. So once they start selling copies in pre-order, well, the clock's ticking now, isn't it? The game has to release, ready or not, here it comes. And yeah, I'm defending game devs here for a moment, trying to be fair. Emphasis on try. The mantra seems to be launch then patch simply because they can. Now, way back in the days, like NES and Sega and all those, what was in the cartridge was in the cartridge, so you had to debug the hell out of it before it hit the shelves. Now, you can let your pre-launch buyers basically beta test for you. Or at least that's what it feels like. I mean, when Defiance went free-to-play, more than a few people accused Tryon of doing just that. Betas don't feel like they're being used for debugging or troubleshooting as much as it's being used for more pre-release hype. I mean, hell, some games never leave beta phase.
So they're selling us a product sight unseen, and more often than not completely blind because it's not even finished yet. And then they say, "Oh no, it'll be good. You know, we'll keep on improving it. We'll make it really good. You know, here's some trailers and here's some pre-order. It'll be good." And then more often than not, it isn't. So what do we do as customers? Well, we do what we always do, and that is we go on social media, we go into forums, and we go wherever we can, and we spread the word that we are unhappy. And this is that other disturbing trend that I was talking about.
I may be a little too close to this concept to be impartial, but that's also why I began this episode with a disclaimer. So, this also touches on what I said last week. Konami false flagging a video really didn't surprise me as much as it should have, because it seemed to be just the latest volley in their active war to silence the bad voices. The Crew is a great example of this. They outright told gamers not to listen to reviewers because, you know, you can only get the true experience of The Crew after spending 40 or 50 hours in the game. Or even in the Unity video, they never admitted that the game was bad. They just went after us evil gamers for being mean cyberbullies. I mean, hell, do I even have to remind you of a guy named Phil Fish? So this is the new trend. Someone critical of you? Attack them. Character assassinations are the norm. They are now actively going after critics to create an echo chamber of only positive voices to shelter the customers they already have, and they promise the world to potential customers that they want. Consider that they have to make $150 million to break even. Yeah, no holds barred.
You know, I would consider what these AAA companies to do to be almost borderline fraud, because continuously they promise us these great games, they don't deliver on it, and then they get mad at us, the consumer, by saying, "You're demanding too much." I just want to grab these people by the shoulders and shake them vigorously and just tell them, you know, you created this monster, you deal with it. Along with the dozen or so other monsters that they've created. But we'll talk about gamer score and achievements some other times. Just not now. Okay, it's obvious to me that they're not going to deal with this issue, so we're going to have to do it. And I've only got one working solution. Don't buy bad games.
If you look for signs for potentially bad games, you're going to start to see them. For example, if a game company asks for your money up front, be wary. Now, Kickstarters aside, if a AAA company wants you to buy into the beta for a free-to-play title, or they offer a ton of superficial goodies for pre-orders, be wary. As long as we keep buying pre-release sales, they're going to keep rushing them to market and selling us bad games. Now second, if a game has a review embargo, be wary. This is almost always a sign of a bad game trying to take your money before the reviewers can get their hands on it. Now this isn't counting like closed beta, because if it's a real closed beta, then they're usually testing and that's not a final product. Usually. Now third, when you see a YouTuber playing a game, take a moment to make sure they're not being compensated to hype the game. EA's Ronku program, that's all I need to say. Now the same goes for the industry reviewers too. Now personally, I don't trust anyone who relies on the hand that feeds to also be impartial. Just saying. Fourth, don't buy digitally unless there is no other way to get the program. This is harsh, but hear me out. Services like Steam are zero refund, and if the game sucks, they say, well, it sucks to be you.
And here's where I play the interrupt card, because, yeah, this is the big thing that changed, and this is why I kind of had to backburner the episode in the first place. At the time that I recorded this, within that week, Steam announced we're going to do a refund policy, and that was that you can refund the game if it was 14 days since the purchase and you've spent less than 2 hours playing the game. So, yeah, Steam does now have a refund policy, but it doesn't help people like me who bought crappy games like The Crew, and we're still hosed. Not that I'm bitter. Okay, back to the episode.
And the company who makes the game, they have your money and they don't care. A physical copy can at least be sold back or traded to a friend.
You know, just once. Just one time. I would love to hear a game dev company say, yeah, we made a bad game, but that's never going to happen. There are a lot of reasons I can think of. Oh, it'll open us up to lawsuits, but more like it'd be a responsible thing to do. Instead, let me just give one piece of advice to the dev teams out there, one lesson, if I can have you walk away with that. Frankenstein was not the name of the monster. And if you don't know why that's the lesson, think about it. And just for the record, it's episodes like this that make me feel like Nostradamus. Just saying.